PPG industries products are everywhere, from the paint on your car, the coatings in airplanes and rockets, to the walls of this very conference hall. With a legacy dating to 1883, PPG has quietly shaped the world for over 140 years. Born in Szczecin, Marta Golden, AI/ML Product Operations Manager, leads their AI-driven transformation. With nearly 2 decades of experience and a passion for global travel, she has visited more places than I can name, Marta's insights today will inspire us to embrace AI's potential in our own industries. Joining her is Sebastian Kubiak, a seasoned AI consultant at Spirasoft with over 15 years of experience. An expert in AI transformation in the chemical industry, Sebastian specializes in process optimization and automation. Always on the lookout for new AI tools, Sebastian is also a content creator and an early crypto investor. Decoding AI transformation for chemical industry. Marta Golden and Sebastian Kubiak, the stage is yours.
Progress never stops. And digital innovation is how we paint our future. We're partnering with our customers to paint the world with possibilities, making their jobs easier, more efficient, and better connected, while driving sustainability, cleaner initiatives, innovative AI, and rigorous execution. Because at PPG, we don't just paint surfaces. We paint the way forward. With digital tools, resources, and on-demand experts to protect and beautify the world.
I'm very pleased to be here and to deliver this short speech on the topic of AI transformation in the chemical industry. And that topic is no joke, and it's been really challenging for me to compress 3 years of a journey that PPG has undertaken into 5 slides, and then to prepare 10 more minutes for Sebastian to be able to talk about the data transformation and AI modeling. So I would like to open this with a short story to give you a context. All of you are smart people, all of you are leaders of your teams, all of you are decision makers. So not so long ago, last year, PPG has participated in the conference prepared by one of the Ivy League schools. And the topic of the conference, one of the topics was decision making with AI. 150 people in the room. One of the workshop exercises was an interstellar project to decide onto which planet should the humankind migrate should the Earth be dismissed. And we were given 20 minutes to make that decision. We were given countless of number of pages of analysis, and we were put together in a room with the timer clicking. During those 20 minutes, there was an interruption. 5 minutes before the time was gone, there was a last-minute report that came into the room delivered by AI. And that report, 5-page long, had some conclusions, and our job was to either consider that report and include in our decision-making process or dismiss. 150 people in the room, big heads, Spotify, Facebooks, government, charity agencies. If you were to guess how many of these leaders consider the AI report in their decision-making process, what would your number be? You're right. So 0 of the leaders that are in charge of decision-making processes at their corporations today would know how to read that report, how to interpret the data, and even if they did those first 2 things, they still would not know whether the AI was telling them the truth or not. So now, having said that, position yourselves in your team's shoes. You are trying to transform your businesses, you're trying to change the way you operate, but you are giving your teams this black box of decision-making process, and they have to change. They have to dismiss or change the way they are operating today and use this black box, AI insights, to decide on the job about their processes. Not easy and requires a lot of thought and a lot of change to make that happen. And that's the topic we're going to talk about today. On this slide right now, you have the very first step of that journey. So say that your board of directors or your company is ready to transform with AI. Where do we start? Typically, you'll have 8 domains in any corporation to transform. You have to look deep inside and nominate those that are most qualified, more successful, or most ready to undergo such a transformation. In our case, we knew there were 5 domains that we could particularly undergo and try experiment with, and those 5 were selected for the initial phase of running proof of concepts. What's also important to say is that this is not the end of the journey, so it's just the first step, your roadmap, your preparation of how you're going to execute later. At this stage, you look for your know-how, you look for your partners, and you look for the readiness examples in your organization to give you indication of the future success. Next, once you have your domains prepared, you need to know how to channel all these ideas and these experiments through the pipeline of product lifecycle. AI, like anything else, needs to be packaged and delivered to your users, to your stakeholders, to your decision makers, and that usually comes with some software around it. So we're talking about here a software lifecycle with AI on top, and that has its unique phases of life cycle. The first phase on top is the yellow one that I marked for you there. It's really the assessment of the domain readiness and assessment of the data, stakeholders, initial value definition of how that might look like. And from there, if the decision about that domain is positive, you may proceed to build your first minimum viable product or some kind of a proof of concept of how that implementation might look like. But more often than not, you're going to find that a lot of these check marks in the yellow box are going to be negative. Your data is not going to be ready. Your organization is not going to be ready. Your value definition is not going to be enough to justify investment. A lot of no's all the way. So what do you do then? Don't stop. You learn and you iterate. What we've learned on our journey was that even if our data is not ready, we can give prescriptive definition to our stakeholders on what to do and how much it would take to be ready. So create roadmaps for them and give them lessons learned of how to improve their current procedures, processes, data collection to be AI ready in the next iteration of the life cycle. And that's exactly what we had to do. In all of those domains that we've tackled, we found data shortages. We found not enough quality data. We found a lot of shortcomings that we had to correct, fix, and come back later. Okay? This is a very important step because nowhere in real world you're going to find ideal situation. And the purpose of having this type of a roadmap is really to learn to fail fast, and fail forward. So always learn from your mistakes. And that's not me saying, that's the famous gentleman John Maxwell said that, but it's so true. I cannot emphasize enough. Then once you have your initial experimentation and some of your experiments are proven to be successful, you proceed to build your full product. And in that stage, it's very important to structure and enable your teams so they are fully functional and they can deliver based on features. Features are going to be tied to your value. You cannot wait anymore for years until the product is ready. This was the old delivery cycle. In the current domain, the current world, you have to have minimum increments to deliver value to the business, so you build trust and you deliver on your promise. What's also important to mention in here is that at any point of that cycle, if you fail or there is enough bad data, enough bad indication of the process not going as expected, you should stop, pivot, and do the next iteration or move to your next experiment, right? So that's the whole purpose of having life cycle maps like that, so your board doesn't have to wait a year or 2 years for results. Every 3 months, you do your quarterly planning, you deliver the commitment, and you have a decision. Do I proceed? Do I stop? Do I pivot? Very, very important. Don't wait years for that. Next, you have your domains. You know how you're going to proceed with your pipelines. Get your organization ready. That's not easy. So when I was working on this slide, I was like, how do I tackle that story? Because this is a complex slide. But my 4-year-old came to me and asked me a question. Mommy, how is the house built? How do you build a house? I'm like, oh my God, child, why do you have to do it now? But being a patient mother, deep breath. So you start with the foundation, and then you build the walls, and then you put a roof, and you put your windows, and you start decorating. Read this slide exactly the same way. You have your foundation on the bottom. In your own business domain, your corporation, find that foundation. For us, it was a data engineering and investment in the data. We already had a single source of the truth for data collection. We used that to drive the rest of the transformation from the platform and engineering perspective. We built machine learning operations on top of that, which was quite easy because data is the foundation, and then you just build the next framework for machine learning. And then we've created a very smart framework for agile delivery using Safe Agile. So each team that was working on transformation in a particular life cycle of the product knew exactly what were the criteria of their success, deliverables, and business value. So the MVP squads, so people that were working on early stages of the product, had different criteria than the full at scale launch versus the support and maintenance teams. Right? So each of those teams is fully enabled with all of the skills that they need and fully autonomous to deliver on the value. They are managed by very successful and very skilled product managers because those are the people that drive value. But last on this slide that I want to emphasize is the presence of transformation managers. Those are the key people that you're not going to find by job description in your workplace. Those are people that, by the book, are connecting the high-level leadership demands with the on-the-job kind of a worker-level job requirements. So that means, let me give you an example. You need someone in your organization who will be able to represent the teams in front of your leadership teams and speak about the value and the progress of the project or a product in their own language, but also be able to go back to the organization and help them adopt and help them change the way they are working because they understand exactly on the job what it means to adopt AI. If you come without that function to your implementation, you're less likely to succeed because you're going to miss the translation layer between your management and your workforce or your teams that are to adopt AI. Very, very critical. And actually that role, presence of that role, is one of the key check marks that we have when proceeding from phase to phase. If the organization doesn't have a sponsor like that, a transformation leader like that, we're likely not to proceed because without that role we've learned, we're not going to succeed. One of my last slides. So the slide is empty, huh? It's empty because I want to talk to you, smart people, about how to do AI implementations without incurring impossible costs. What that means is when you do your first domain transformation, think about your enablers. So build foundational blocks that you will be able to reuse once you get to the next transformational domain. And those are 4 blocks that we've identified working with all the smart people around the globe. Number 1, we identified data science. So we knew that modeling and models can be purchased off the shelf, but how we structure the data domain and data processing around these models, this is our IP, this is our property. Our scientists know exactly how to work with our data, and they are the ones that create infrastructure around the model to know how to feed that model and what comes out of that model. It's our IP, nobody else knows how to do it. Number 2, change management. We've invested very heavily in change management programs with the whole teams and with very significant number of hours and number of people to help us drive change. Without a specific program and specific leadership around change management, you're less likely to succeed. And the reason why is my first story that I told you. None of you leaders, not even like myself, if I were to decide on the job with a black box today, how would I do that? Impossible. You need change management to help understand the user perspective, user experience, and help translate their concerns into the product features. Number 3, we used our enablers from engineering perspective. So data engineering and machine learning engineering frameworks, we use those as templates, and we just reused and reused every time we tackled new domain. We did not keep inventing new wheel. We used everything that existed with some customizations, some enhancements. Very important, avoided a lot of cost. And last but not least, number 4, user experience. So that black box that AI is telling you or giving you as an insight, you have to unravel, you have to unblock users from not having any trust. And user experience with domain thinking processes comes to aid. We've invested very, very heavily in understanding the concerns from each of the participating domains. And our user experience managers, user experience designers took their sweet time to design every product that we've launched to cater to those specific concerns and those specific, let's say, domain-driven needs. Very, very important. And I just got rid of my clicker, so I have to go back here. Because that last thing that I wanted to mention, the change management comes with a framework. So you don't have to look far, you don't have to look for something that has not been invented. Actually, people like Gartner, McKinsey, EY, they have those frameworks ready for adoption. And what we've learned was actually that this particular framework that is talking about 4 types of modeling of change is 8 times more likely to help you succeed than if you don't use this type of a model. So basically those 4 elements in the mindset and behavior shift, if you use all of them combined as your change management framework, your success rate for AI adoption goes 8 times higher. Very, very important. And now, onto the fun stuff. So I've opened my presentation with the high-level how to set up the program, how to help you run with your first domain transformation. And now let's dive deeper into example of one of those transformations in PPG. And what we have here is a paint manufacturing process. Paint in its liquid state is produced in those large manufacturing tanks. But to make it simple for you, I want to take you on a journey to your childhood, because we all probably remember the time from our homes where our mom or our grandma or even yourselves are making pancakes. Who doesn't love pancakes, right? I love pancakes for sure, although you can't tell by my waist. So pancake making process is very similar to paint making. You have your pre-measured dry ingredients, you have your liquid ingredients, and then you have a big bucket in which you mix them all together, right? Very, very simple. But in order to arrive at your grandmother's recipe, you mix, you put it on a pan, you fry it, you smell it, you taste it. Does it taste the same? Not always, right? And that's the whole trick. So when it doesn't taste the same, what do? You go back to your main batch and you add a little bit of sugar, maybe a bit more milk, maybe a bit of water, and you repeat the whole process of frying on the pan and tasting it. Long process, right? Even longer with the paint manufacturing. Paint manufacturing can take anywhere from 1 to more than 30 adjustments like that, which expands our lead times exponentially, if you can imagine, right? And it's not much fun to be tasting paint, but I can show you how actual quality process looks like in terms of color. So what I have here for you are the actual paint colors from our cars. And I know that we have in the audience here car manufacturing representation. So I have here our beautiful red from Hyundai, and I have here a beautiful color from gray from Mercedes. So this is exactly a sample of color that the car is being painted at the end. And the goal of the manufacturing process is to repeat this exact color to meet customer requirements. What we have is only those type of panels, and then every time a batch is being made, each sample from the batch requires spray out of 3 to 5 to 7 to 9 panels like that, measuring these panels and understanding, okay, am I within the target that the customer wants? How do I know if I'm within the target? So let me show you another one. I have here one of the most problematic colors, and all the colors I'm showing you right now actually are the paint samples from our AI implementation as well. So this is Brooklyn Gray. Brooklyn Gray is a very difficult color because it's flat, right? So it's hard because on the car surface, it can bump, it can curve in a different way, and the color may not be exactly as it seems. What's also difficult is that our lovely car manufacturing customers, they require the measurement of the panel under 5 angles. So you see that the specialty color here, if I flip, depending how the light falls, the color is different. So those 5 angles of measurement are supposed to give assurance that the color overall is correct. So you have 5 angles to measure, 5 values per angle, and then you have infinite number of pigments, so those colorants, to use to achieve this color. And now you put a person, that actually I will show you probably in the next slide, in this booth to compare the 2 panels and to tell the difference. So if they are able to tell the difference, then they have to derive from the dry sample like this how to fix the 10,000 liter batch of paint with addition of something, okay? Good luck with that, I'm out. I'm not gonna follow through with any of my career stuff if I were to do this job, right? So that's why it takes like approximately 15 years to become very skilled at this job, because the amount of learning you have to undergo to know exactly which ingredients moves the color in which direction, under which angle, it's a science. So AI can help, right? And in our case, a simple value proposition for our business stakeholders was a reduction in cycle time by 50% with using AI and cutting the number of adjustment cycle into 1. Simple, right? So with that, without having built any extra tanks or increasing our footprint of manufacturing, we're able to deliver more capacity with no investment. Small investment in AI, right? Very, very powerful. 10 plants participated in that exercise in PPG. Very, very successful and very promising. We're still on that journey, by the way. And going back to adoption, because we just talked about the technical difficulties and the value proposition, we still have the users and we still have our specialists to convince that those AI insights are going to be better than their own brain. So what we've developed was a clever internal marketing process to eliminate the fear that was repeated plant to plant. What if AI is going to replace me? Can AI replace me? Where am I going to be needed? My job is going to be eliminated. No, it's AI plus human. It's man plus machine. We have never claimed that those AI models are going to be better than the colorist expert working on the batch of paint day to day. But that colorist expert, if they have the AI insight, their job is going to be exponentially more easy, and also they're going to have more insights into that manufacturing process. So automatically, each shader, so shader is the colorist that works on that batch of paint, is your best shader. They don't need 20 years on the job. Using AI, every shader is your best shader. Simple. And to cater to our management teams, our products, when they are being built, we always embed a tracking of value delivery. So when the plant is being joined into adoption process, we join them also into our automated value tracking dashboards. And every month, the number of times they click and they use our suggestions, in the background, the data engineering runs, and it tells us, hey, how much capacity was unlocked because we used AI. Pretty cool, huh? No discussion. And last but not least, because I talked about the design thinking and the importance of user experience. This is a real-life example of what we have done as the first iteration of that product. This is the user interface with simple recommendation of using 3 pigments, those blue lines, with percentages on the right-hand side, telling an expert how to adjust the batch. So use those 3 pigments at the percentages that it gives you. Now, if you are that expert and you've worked in that field for your last 10 years, would you trust this? Like, I've never seen it before. Like, I know to do it with different pigments. I know different percentages. I wouldn't use those, right? So we have to go back to the drawing board and iterate on it. So this is how the product looks like after 6 more months. We took a lot of time and we iterated on it, and now all the questions have been answered. I don't want to bore you with details, but those blue boxes are telling you basically that AI insights are explained. So it's explained to the expert how AI is arriving at the conclusion. They are being offered multiple choices of AI preference. So you can choose recommendation 1, 2, or 3, depending on the complexity of your adjustment. You also can look into rule-based logic that data science applied, because you know you have to clean your data, you have to remove outliers, do averaging, all sorts of stuff. It's all explained. If you dare to go there, you can read and validate that it's all correct. And lastly, you give your feedback. If you decide not to use that adjustment recommendation, tell us why. Very powerful for the feedback loop. All right. And I think I set enough of stage and I warmed you up for Sebastian, who's going to come here and now tell you about the nitty-gritty behind the data. Sebastian, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks Marta for setting up the stage for me. What Marta finished with is she explained us the transformation enablers. She also mentioned about operational enablers, but there is one elephant in the room. For all those presentations that we already had, the clue to even start training the models of any kind is the data. And what I want to emphasize on are the data enablers. So, to let you grasp on that topic, I will keep the same narrative as Marta did with batch AI. In terms of batch, we had to ask yourself, what the data do we need? The data, you can see on the slide, required was 20 to 40 formulations with 10 to 14 samples. And if you multiply it also by the facilities, you can simply find that there is almost over 500 different data rows required. So how to get this data? In your own companies and different clients you work with, you probably saw multiple ERP systems, multiple laboratory systems, or for example, in that particular case, global system that collects all this data that Marta shown on those diagrams. And even though at PPG, the data was collected, the data was counted to have these numbers. However, there was not enough data. And in some cases, even though the quantity matched, there was lack in terms of optimization. So we lacked the data about edge cases. What it leads to is to one of the failure of the data. And the failure is that even though you might build a model, you might build your AI solution, the model would say something wrong, and later on, if you didn't set your enablers for business right, your company might lose the trust. So what was done? PPG ran real-life experiments. Because the synthetic data was no-go to gain the trust. So in that particular case, real-life batches of paint were used, were created, and in some cases were wasted to create a proper amount of data. Now, we fill the gap. We put this data into the ERP system. We collected this data from different parts. Now, what to do with this whole mess? Because having 5 or even more ERP systems is not efficient. But you cannot do something like restructurize whole SP500 component and say, okay, guys, let's all migrate into single one. For those that know, this is impossible. Not from a technical point of view, but from a business point of view. And there are multiple frameworks for that. If you search for this one, which is called medallion architecture, you will find different explanations from different vendors. Of course, everyone want to sell the solution that is the best. There is no the best solution. You will find it on the almost last of my slides. But the essence of it, and as medallion architecture state is about the colors, is to order the quality of data in a way that you can later on manage it professionally. So on the left side, on the left side you can find those data sources I mentioned, those ERP systems, your Excel files, your databases, if you are infrastructure engineer, or even logs. In PPG, this was those 5 ERP systems. And the first benefit you might get from organizing the data on the bronze layer is to have it centralized. Because from now on, when you have a single source of truth, collected all the data from different sources with a bold as is, with all the errors also, or the duplicates, or the missing values, you can start identifying and forming a strategy. What I can do with the data, even if I can do something with data, and properly also access all the sources at once that your engineers will probably benefit and be happy about. So what I want to emphasize on the bronze layer is the centralization and preparation for the next stages. The next stage is the silver one. And in that particular case, in batch AI, you can imagine that having those multiple systems within the paint industry in different countries, you might have data using different unit of measures, yeah? So on top of it, you also would have a problem with different formats, different tables, different everything, because one ERP system might be from different vendor. Now, you should plan how to normalize the data. So that's the work that is done in the silver layer. Changing those units into single one, changing into one single structure. Now, you should also solve the issues I mentioned in the bronze layer, because you don't want wrong data there. You would like to remove the duplicates. You would like to implement a strategy for missing values, what to do with the missing values. Should I remove the whole record? Should I fill the gaps, knowing some other system that might do it? That might be called feature extraction or feature implementation in that particular case. And with use of word feature, there is one last part of the silver, what can happen. You can develop your own metric that is necessary for later on to be used in model training. In that particular case, it was the difference between different batches in terms of performance and historical performance. Now, obviously, when you run the silver layer through, what you will find that now you can put some operations around it about the data, some quality assurance, so proper monitoring, some dev operations, and now you can properly curate this data and maybe lock it as a single gold nugget. Because from now on, when you form the gold source of data in a proper, clear form that is governed, that you know that no one will change that source for you, you can be pretty sure that your data engineers can from now on focus on very important part of their job of thinking about hyperparameters for the model, how to train it, and not to worry that the data itself give them wrong results, but the methodology they dive into in terms of the training itself. And as you can see, those 3 layers are the enablers for data science and ML projects, maybe some BI reporting and other parts. But in the end, this is a very briefly described process. Later on, it might end up as something like this. So if we have different providers on the stage, they are happy. Okay, there is a commercial part. I am not selling the solution. This is our end goal for PPG. They brought that to our attention, which providers they use. In your company's perspective, this might be too big, or you have different partnerships with different providers. I don't want to focus too much on this slide, because in the end, for your companies, for your projects, AI-enabled projects, this pipeline might look much, much, much different. But the heart of it, I cannot emphasize this enough, is the data. If you don't focus on your data, all the presentations we had today, starting from David, going through Pete's, all of those models, all of those LLMs, the field that you are familiar with, all of those are based, their quality on the data. This is same story with custom-made models. So having that said, when you look at the last part on this diagram, because the ML is only mentioned on the last part, on the data science part, that we can think that there is. Before we go to the machine learning part, and we create our model, there is also the change. Imagine that you even have the model and you need to create a product from it. You cannot send a model files to your customers. You need to build the front end around it. You need to host it somehow. What else? You need to do a lot of other things, because the model itself will be, is, and I hope as long as will be for a very, very long time, will be only a heart of those systems. And around all those are other organs that we are all familiar with, because the software development itself for ML is only a black box. You can treat it as database, and you still need to implement on the infrastructure, cultural change, and everything that was already mentioned. And with that, too much. And with that, thank you, and I invite you to networking later on.